All right. See if my video and everything's working here. Just a second. David, also I love the Social D license plate in the background. Thank you for having that there. Love it. Erin, it's great to see you again. The last time you and I were on one of these panels, you were at a very different company targeting a very different group of people. How
I
the first,
was.
how, how's the transition been? How much homework did you have to do to like get in the mindset of this new consumer?
I had to eat a lot of tacos, that's for sure.
There you
Yeah,
go.
I came out of hotels hospitality at Marcus Hotels and Resorts and joined, it's almost been 2 months now, Del Taco Restaurants. Still living in Wisconsin, though, and loving it, but really ramping up quickly.
Nice. All right. So I I struggle with when we do these to not just rattle off the same questions about how to market to this consumer, but I get stuck in that a little bit. I think this is the first one of these though where I'm not going to start with a COVID question because I think we're all completely sick of it and it's all been talked
Hmm.
about to death. Um, so to that point, the Gen Z consumer is known to have the shortest attention span of any human on the planet. How do you break through that? How do you get the attention of the person?
Um, I'm not Gen Z, but I think I have a pretty short attention span as well. But it's difficult because it changes the way you look at all content, right? Traditional content being commercials and thinking about like having 30 seconds, sometimes 60 seconds, which is unheard of, to tell a story to someone. But now you have to start with the end before you begin. And I like to think of it as my degrees in theater. And uh, there's a play called Endgame. And one of the quotes in it is, "The end is the beginning, and yet we go on." And so I find myself always searching for what's the outcome going to be and then what's the journey to get there. And that to me is what Gen Z is looking for. Like, tell me where we're going and then tell me how to get there.
Right. Okay. I too have a very short attention span, so I feel you on that one. Um, it's interesting, you could be watching the series finale, the season finale of your favorite show, and you've been waiting for it for months. Yet I'm sitting on the couch with my phone in my hand and looking at it probably more than I am the television. So that's a big challenge. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so unlike past generations, even considering millennials, for Gen Z, their mobile device, their tablet is an extension of who they are. It is not a nice to have, it is a must have. How's Del Taco using digital, specifically your app or your website to provide better service, to engage and really provide better value for the consumer?
Yeah. And I don't even know if it's a Gen Z as much as just a nowadays thing. And I would say that because 3 years ago or so, I went to a conference and they asked everybody to hold up their phone. And they said, all right, everybody has a phone. Nobody was without a phone. And they said, all right, everybody pass your phone to the right. And you would have thought you were asked to murder a child. Like they all looked at the person like, we're not doing that. And that was 3 years ago. And now you think like, I still wouldn't do that, right? Your phone is your lifeline, your tablet's your lifeline. You're not going to hand it just to anyone. I don't think Gen Z is any different than any of the other generations as it relates to that. Well, at least not to millennials for sure. At Del Taco, we focus on telling a story, and let's be honest, it's an effing cool brand, right? Like it's fun. Like I'm selling tacos. We're not doing brain surgery here, and we get to have fun doing it. So like our current campaign is our boy Chris B. He's a punk rocker, 80s hair band, and he's singing about tacos. And what we did is like, okay, singing about tacos, why is that cool? No, he's a character. And so watching his little short clips on social media, they're 6 seconds of him talking about like how he got the name Crispy or how the band came to be called Crispy Tiger, or they talked about how he has tiger pants and he's like, because they fit. Like those were the only pants that fit. So like just dumb stuff that like when you watch it, you just laugh. And that seems to hit home because I think there's so much stress in our lives, generational Gen Z and millennials, um, for everyone, that like we want that stupid fun, right?
Yeah,
And again, we don't take ourselves too seriously. We're selling tacos.
right. Well, were you also saying that that band is actually an actual hair band
Mhm.
from the 80s?
Yeah, there is a real band called Steel Panther, And so we worked with them. They opened for like Def Leppard and stuff. They're outstanding, and they're a lot of fun to work with.
Nice. That's so fun. So I spent some time on the Del Taco app over the past couple days, and I feel like it's hitting a lot of the needs that people have, with mobile ordering and in-store pickup and all that stuff right now. And I think about when it prompts me for location services and things like that, and as it relates to privacy, seems like Gen Z is a little bit more attuned to privacy than most generations. Millennials, I think, accept the giving up their privacy is just part of the table stakes these days, whereas Gen Z, I think, is a little bit more in tune with maybe not allowing some of those things. How do you communicate that you care about their privacy, whether it's through your app or through other types of messaging?
Well, I think you just hit it on the head. It's not that they won't share their location. It's that they want to know why. What's in it for them? What are you doing with this data? And so it is about having the appropriate privacy policies, letting them know with whether it's pop-ups or messaging, hey, we're taking this seriously. We care about your data. And also Gen Z is also smart enough to know that their data is worth something, right? So if I'm giving you this data, what are you giving me in return? Whether it's you're going to show me the appropriate offers or whatever it might be. I think they've just become smarter to the fact that data for a company means something. And so if they're giving that to us, they are looking for something in return.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed a big part of our value problem, what we do here, but how do you communicate that? So when someone's downloading the app and you're asking them to turn on location services, what are you showing them as the value add? Is the value add that you'll be able to better know what stores to go to, that you'll be able to get food delivered better? Like what's the trade-off?
Yeah, it's being able to get sending the right messaging, having the pop-up that shows, hey, share your location with us. We're going to use that to make sure you get the most relevant offers, right? It's that simple. I don't want to overcomplicate it because it's not complicated. It's really just flat out telling them, this is why you're sharing this with us. And I'm seeing that a lot more, not just in Del Taco's app, but in all apps and places where permissions are being asked. They're telling you right away. Before it was, hey, do you want to share your data? Do you want to share your location? Now it's, hey, if you share your location, here's what you're getting in return. And I think that's really important because otherwise, why am I sharing my data with you?
Right. No, I completely agree. And over the years, we've worked with a lot of customers on doing that exact thing, because it used to be, to your point, you get this black and white message that says, do you want location services tracking you all the time? No, I don't think I do. But if you're showing, okay, here's what you unlock and here's the value that you get by doing it, it's a total game changer. So with that said, I think Gen Z really values one-to-one communication. They want to feel special. I think they're still growing up with everyone's getting a trophy at the end of their, whatever sport that they're playing. So what does one-to-one communication look like for Del Taco?
I would say that is getting offer. It's going to sound weird, but depending on the kind of taco you like, right? Depends on the kind of messaging you get or how frequently you want to get that messaging. And again, I've only been here 2 months, so it's going to evolve and change. And I'm sure we'll be doing many different things over the next year. But you can get personalized with tacos. Now, right now we segment, like if you're a vegan, we have Beyond Meat tacos, which are amazing. So that means there's no meat in them. They are made with the Beyond product, and they're so good. And when I talk to vegans, they're like, I love your Beyond tacos. But if you served me that ad, that might not be enticing to me because I do love meat. On the flip side, I don't want to show heavy meat products to someone who is like, no, I don't have any interest in that whatsoever. So there does start to become segmentation in that respect.
Right.
And also just finding out what their favorite local Del Taco is and being able to serve them offers that are going on if they're different in different areas. We do have franchisees throughout the country that have different offerings going on. And then right now we have crispy chicken partnered with Cholula. We partnered with Cholula, the brand, to roll out Cholula crispy chicken tacos, which are outstanding if you haven't tried them. And in fact, today, if you buy one combo meal, you get one combo meal free, which is a big deal for us.
Nice. Well, I mean it without any sense of pandering, but Del Taco is hands down the fast food of choice in our household. And you talk about having specific ordering. Everyone in my house has got the most belabored changes for every product that they want. I got to like be on my game when I'm going through that drive-through line. Um, anyhow, so Gen Z, as I read, and I'm far from Gen Z. I've got children who are early Gen Zers. Um, they don't want to be sold products. At least that's what I'm told. They want to be sold experiences. What's the experience that you're selling at Del Taco?
Yeah, so we obviously have a value-based product, right? It's QSR plus, meaning but we also make our food fresh. So you will come into our restaurant and we're actually slicing and dicing avocados and the cheese and all those things, which you typically do not find in the QSR space. So now you have a fresh product that is value-based and very convenient. And so when you ladder those three things together, you have an outstanding product, and then we get to have fun doing it. So you get a fresh taco, which for Gen Z, who we're learning is starting to focus a little more on health, a little more on those things, to have a product that you know where it's coming from is really exciting.
Yeah, definitely. I think you partially answered this for my first question, but so you're settling into this role. I know that there's different responsibilities that you're going to be taking over as the team kind of shakes out. What is Del Taco not doing that you're hoping to start doing to reach this consumer better, in coming months and quarters?
Well, I will tell you that my position was brand new. This position didn't exist before, so it's leading marketing technology. And so we have a great foundation, but we get to build from there. And what that means is like looking at what our CRM looks like and building out from there. If you read any of the articles that our CEO or CMO have done in the past, probably 3 or 4 months, they'll talk a lot about how we are leaning into technology. And that's exciting for us, especially at the size of our company, being able to go, you know what, we need to take the information customers are giving us and be able to use it to help better serve them. So that's what we're going to focus on, is really how does our marketing technology stack really ladder up to providing a better experience for our consumer.
Can you give some examples of where you might see some deficiencies there? Like what specific things are you hoping to employ?
I wouldn't say deficiencies. I would say building on an already foundation. So for example, we believe that our customer should be able to get our food the way they want it, right? So I don't have necessarily anything to do with the way they order their food, from like how they off the menu. But what I can do is help get it to them, right? So the convenience of getting the food wherever they want it, whenever they want it, whether it's through delivery service providers, through our own online ordering system, through the app, through understanding what offers are available to them at what time, because we have a breakfast menu, which is stellar, all the way through a late night. Many of our restaurants are open 24 hours a day. So being able to handle that entire stretch of time to make sure they know, and no matter where they are, we can get them that food. So from an anemic place, I wouldn't say we're anemic anywhere. I would say that we have opportunity to build on what the current structure already exists, as well as looking at what loyalty is going to look like in the future for us. So it's currently, our app is offers based, right? You can get offers in there, interact in there. There's no loyalty structure. What does that look like? What could that feel like for a consumer in the future? And that's something we are definitely exploring.
This is not necessarily a question. It's a thought, because I spent a lot of time looking at QSR apps and just kind of seeing how useful they are. And it's amazing to me how some of them, especially SoCal-based QSRs, which there's quite a few, they don't really do anything other than it's just a presence on an app. And how do those guys survive? Like, how do you reach a Gen Z consumer when they can't even work with your product through the app?
So I don't disagree with you. I think that brands think that because they're getting engagement, they assume it's working. And for example, there is a QSR in the space that has an offers-based app. I'm not talking about my own, although I probably could use that as an example. That whenever I think I want to go eat at that restaurant, right? I want to go get food from there. I think about wanting to go get food from there, and then I go, maybe I'll check their app and see if there's a deal in there. So as far as I'm concerned, that's potentially cannibalizing sales. I was already making the determination mentally that I'm going to there, I'm going to get food from there, and then I checked the app for a deal, right?
Right.
Versus the deal driving me to get the food. that on the brand side, they're seeing it as like, well, someone used the deal in the app. Well, I was already coming. So from the consumer side, do I have the app? Yes. Do I use it for offers? Yes, when I plan on going there, but only if I already planned on going there. So it doesn't actually drive user behavior. I think, so to your point, what's the point, right? Like, which is really your question. I don't know. I think that eventually we have to level up from there, and brands are going to have to get smarter on like, all right, by giving these offers, what does that do to our average ticket? Did it improve our transaction count? And if it didn't, then does it make sense to do it, right?
Right.
On the flip side, if you've trained your consumer that there's always a deal there, and then you take away the deal, now does that hurt you?
Yeah. I think for me personally, it's more about using the services within the app that are mostly already there to alert me of a location that's nearby. If I'm driving by in a place where I don't know, but I know I like Del Taco, but it's letting me know where one is, because sometimes they can be a little hard to find. They're in smaller areas sometimes.
Yeah.
So those services I think are critical, regardless of whether you're Starbucks or Del Taco. Like, help me find you. Let me know when you're going by, because you never know.
Yes. Or when there's a very, very special promotion, that might actually drive user behavior. And I won't lie, I did go to Starbucks when they were giving away the Christmas cups the other day. I got a note saying on that day you could go and get a Christmas cup. I actually showed up a day early accidentally, and the guy's like, that's tomorrow. So they got 2 transactions out of me.
Nice. All right. So video. Video is driving everything, I think, for this generation. How are you using video? How do you want to use it differently where you're not currently doing it? Like, what does video mean for Del Taco and reaching this consumer right now?
Video is huge, not just for Del Taco. It's huge for everyone, like you said. And again, it's not about long form video anymore. It's about short, scrappy, fun, funny, witty, shareable content. And I don't say shareable and not in the terms of viral, but shareable is like, TikTok, right? I get sucked into TikTok for hours and hours and hours. And those videos are like anywhere from 6 to 15 seconds. And then I sit with my husband and I go, do you want to see the funniest TikToks you've ever seen? And he's like, I don't, but I'll watch them because I love you. And I'll flip through them and I'm laughing hysterically. And he's just staring at me. And we're 2 very different generations, right? And he thinks it's the weirdest thing. Like, why is that content funny to you? I'm like, it's hysterical. And I liken that to when I talk to Gen Zers. That's what they're doing. They're flipping through and it's just quick spurts, right? They're the ones sending 500 to 600,000 Snapchats every 6 months. That's insane, right? Like I've sent like 2,000.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. What brands in your vertical are doing it right? Who's doing things that you hope to be doing, or who's nailing it?
I think, well, we look not just in our own vertical, but other verticals as well. And obviously we keep an eye on all the players that everybody keeps an eye on, right? The Starbucks, the Burger Kings, the Chick-fil-A's, right? Everybody has to have their eye on those guys. But then we look outside of that too, and fun brands that are not even in restaurants, right? Whether they're in hospitality or retail, just to see what's happening, right? Whether it's Zappos or DSW from a shoe and how their messaging and their campaigns are looking. Kohl's always does a nice job around the holidays. So like just keeping an eye on what are people doing, what's witty, what's different. The same way we all watch the Budweiser or the Super Bowl commercials, right? To wait and see like what's happening. Oreo has had some really great wins over the last couple of years.
Right.
They seem to be leveling it up, but it's keeping an eye not just on our own vertical, because if we all just watch each other, like how are we leveling ourselves up?
Yeah, no, I agree. I just ask about the vertical because I feel like the QSR vertical has the most levity, or most often does outlandish things that really seem to drive sales. You think about like what Burger King does, when they're saying if you're near a McDonald's, come get a burger or whatever.
Go eat McDonald's.
I feel like you can push the limits where other brands potentially can't or aren't willing to try.
And Burger King's done a lot of fun stuff too. It's just interesting to watch. And because I'm in the space, people often share stuff back where they'll be like, did you see what so-and-so's doing? And you're like, oh, interesting. Let's keep an eye on that, right? And because, again, it's a small industry, so we're all friends, right? I talk to all these guys all the time, and that's what's great about it.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. I don't know exactly how much time we have. I know we're going to leave room for questions. I've got a couple more of my own, but I'm hoping that some start rolling through. How are you utilizing influencers? I know that, you've got your big brand name influencers that everybody knows, and you've got the more kind of micro niche ones that have got kind of maybe a specific story to tell for your consumers. But how's Del Taco utilizing influencers right now?
So we recently, when we launched Crispy and our 80s hairband, Crispy Tiger, we sent out the kits that people received that were like your typical 80s hairband media kits that you would receive if your band's going on tour, and people loved them. And what would happen now is if you go on YouTube or all these places, these guys that were advocates of Del Taco and fit completely in the mix with our Crispy Tiger demo went through the drive-throughs. They ate in their car. They're eating like those dashboard diners, right? You're sitting at your dashboard and you have your tacos and your burger, and they're talking about Crispy Tiger. They're talking about our Cholula crispy chicken taco, and they do such a great job. Like, we don't even have to say anything. They do it for us. So influencer marketing is, I think, for any brand a must, but it's always been a must. Like, we've just started labeling it over the past few years, influencer marketing. It's always been word of mouth marketing, right? You could go to a word of mouth marketing conference and they go, "Oh, who's talking about your brand? What are those people?" And you knew how important they were based on how many people they talked to. Same idea as influencer marketing, just digitally, right? But for us, it is important. I think for any brand, it's important.
How much social listening are you doing to help make sure you get to the right influencers?
So our social team does a great job, and that's exactly what they're doing, is listening, figuring out who's talking about us, why they're talking about us, and infiltrate. And sometimes if it's a negative interaction that someone had right away and we flip that, that can be sometimes your biggest advocate, is someone who might have not had a great experience and you're able to make it a great experience for them. They're the ones that are going to tell their friends.
Right. How do brands similar to yours that have been around, some of them for decades, hundreds of years, some of them, how do they stay relevant to Gen Z without sacrificing the core of who they are?
I would say that, one, you have to have a solid product, right? Your product, no matter who you are, it has to be a good product. And then outside of that, it's continuing to reinvent yourself, right? The same person I was 10 years ago is not the same person I am today. It's the same for a brand. I have a personal brand. We have a restaurant brand or a hotel brand or a retail brand. And it's reinventing yourself, really looking inside yourself. Do your core values stay the same? Yes. But is the image you're putting out different? Absolutely. I no longer have feather bangs and a side ponytail, because you move and you grow with the times, the same thing your brand does.
But the feather bangs and the ponytail might go well with the current campaign. So I'm just saying.
Totally.
All right. Let's see. What are your 2021 predictions or outlook for the QSR category?
I think it'll continue to grow. I think that what's been interesting is during the pandemic, we've seen people, for me, my family personally has gotten closer and closer together and grown closer together, because guess what? We have nowhere to go. But families have gotten in the car and drove to a QSR, gone through the drive-through together. It's actually become family time because you're eating out together, or, hey, I'm going to go pick up McDonald's or whatever. Everybody's getting in the car, like, I'll go with you. And I think that's really interesting. And it'd be great if we could hold on to that through 2021, of people being like, yeah, let's all go through the drive-through together and like have that experience. And how do we level up that experience in the QSR space as well? I think curbside, people just being able to pull up and the food's right there. It's all there. What the pandemic has done for us is just accelerated everything. So all the stuff we've been talking about for the past 5 years, it took everything technology-wise and just shoved it out the door, right? It said, hey, you were testing curbside, but now it's a mandate. You have to have it. You were testing being able to check in, drive up, and pick up something from a distance. Now you have to have it. You were testing the ability to have an interaction without having to communicate with a real life person. Now it's a must have. And so all these things we were testing before, just moved them right along, which has been great. And I hope it continues through 2021.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on the drive-through part, but I would argue that it's almost mandatory for certain places that you drive through with the whole family and eat it immediately. This is like Del Taco, you want that taco crispy? Don't try driving home. You want those fries from In-N-Out to be good? Those have about a 15-minute shelf life, so you better drive through and eat them really quick.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that, so, you're being relatively new there. I'm not sure if you're going to, well, I'll give you some levity on this one. How have the media plans for Del Taco changed during COVID? Or have you seen some insight into that, or are we so deep into COVID in your time here that you're not really focused on that too much?
Oh man, I would have to go back and look at what the pre-COVID media plan was, but I know that digital is still core, but that was core before. And like you said, video, right? That's where you're targeting that demo. And to me, when we talk about like, how do you talk to Gen Z versus millennial, like at the end of the day, it's really a psychographic of what's that type of person you're talking to? What do they feel like, look like? What do they think about? And I'm a millennial. And when people bucket me into millennials, I'm like, that's not me. That's not who I am, right? I don't have a trophy. I wish I had a trophy. I don't have a trophy. But how do you think? How do you look? And then someone goes, well, you're not like all the millennials. There's actually 22 different versions of millennial. And I'm like, let's just target the thought process and the psychographic and less the generation necessarily.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, all of us have traits of every different type of generation and different social classes that are out there, and we're all unique from a certain standpoint. But to that point, what do you think effect this generation is going to have on big corporations moving forward, as far as, when they start to have leadership, into their 20s and 30s? I think the math tells us that this generation is like anywhere right now between like 8 and 20 some early 20 something years old. Not quite in the workforce in a meaningful way yet, but what are they gonna be demanding when they're in the workforce?
I think we've already seen it. I think what's interesting is we talked about how millennials wanted flexibility to work from home and do all this stuff. And then the pandemic came and it shoved everybody to work from home. And guess who excelled really well at it? Millennials. So They went, oh yeah, we can do this. We've wanted to do this for so long. But I think we're going to continue to see that ability to be flexible with their work, to be not given anything, but to be rewarded for what they've earned, right? This idea that we work without any type of appreciation is kind of crazy to me. My parents always said, well, it's your job. It's because it's your job. You shouldn't expect appreciation. Well, no, I should. Like, if I do a good job, I would like someone to say, hey, that was a good job, right? And I think that's where it differed. I think Coca-Cola did a study years ago where it said all the different generations, when you laddered them up and overlaid them on top of each other, the one core difference, we all worked hard, baby boomers, all of us, millennials, Gen Z, all of us, the one core difference is Gen Z and millennials had happiness in the center. So it was important to us. It was core to who we were. And that didn't exist necessarily for my parents' generation. They wanted to work hard. They want all this stuff, but happiness wasn't necessarily number one.
I definitely agree that it feels like a more enlightened group who's more in touch with what's going to make them happy moving forward. I think Gen Z even much more so than millennial, and for me, Gen X, we got our priorities all fucked up. But I would be remiss without telling you this, because the last time we did one of these, you had just come back from Las Vegas. And I haven't driven to Vegas in a long time, but I will tell you that there is a Del Taco in Bakersfield between LA and Las Vegas that has, like, whatever you order, you get a taco, and it's double the size of any other Del Taco on the planet. And it's always a treat to go there because they just, like, everything is enormous. I don't know if they're just hitting a certain market, but it is like
nice.
Like the Disneyland of Del Tacos on the way to Vegas.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Let me see. Going to these questions that are written really small. You've gotten that one. So I've got no more group questions. I've gone through my questions. I think we're close to the end of our time, because I'm not getting any messages from David, so I'm not quite sure where we're at. Until we're bothered, I guess, for me, what do you think is important when you're thinking about this generation? Like, how much of when whether you're Coca-Cola or Mountain Dew or whoever you are, you want to lock these consumers in as early as possible so that they're going to you instead of going to Taco Bell, right? Because I think the consumer going to Del Taco is not the same consumer going to Del Taco, in my opinion. How do you lock them in to be your loyal consumer versus theirs?
Well, one, I think it's about consistency. I think for any brand, it's about consistency, right? So you have to have the same experience yesterday that you're going to have today. The other thing that I think helps is the air in which the quality of the product, right? So like I can confidently say our product has a high quality to it for QSR. That's why I say it borderlines QSR plus. You do not go to a QSR restaurant where they make fresh guacamole. It does not happen. Ours does, right? And if you look online, you can find a commercial where we rivaled it up to some very, very, very high profile fast casual guacamole that you, I'm sure, know. And it rivaled it and people loved it. And those were like real taste testers. So I will tell you that that's what sets us apart is people come and they know they can count on our quality. They can count on the value they're going to get and they're going to count on the freshness.
Got you. I asked this in another way, but I'm going to ask it again because either I wasn't paying close enough attention or I didn't hear it. What's the biggest kind of, as a MarTech lead for Del Taco, what's the biggest initiative you'd like to see fulfilled going into next year that you see not happening right now? Whether it's some kind of software that gets built into the app, making curbside pickup easier, like you said, using more of your own internal data. Like, what's the big thing that you're hoping to accomplish next year?
I think looking at our CRM and loyalty structure will be hands down where I spend a lot of time. Is what does that look like? What drives the consumer and how we can meet their needs while still helping, I don't want to say increase their spend, although on our end, of course, increase their spend, but having them understand why adding something that maybe they haven't tried before is going to be really exciting for them, right? So educating the consumer and then looking at our CRM and loyalty.
Do you see that as a primary mechanism of an app, or is it everything working together between the marketing on TV and radio and in store, or is that mainly an app driven?
No, it's everything. And I say that because not everyone's going to download your app. I don't care what brand you are. Not everyone's going to download your app. Now, my job is to make sure they understand why it benefits them to have the app. But I need to be everywhere they want to be. And we saw that start a couple years ago when, I don't know, maybe it's been 5 years now, when Domino's was like, tweet a pizza, right? And people were like, what? But what they did was they went, we need to be wherever our customers want to find us. And so to me, I'm not saying we're going to tweet a taco, although now when you say it like that, it sounds fun. But you need to look at those places that your consumer wants to interact with you and make sure you're there. And like I said, not everybody wants to download an app.
Yeah. I agree with you, and I need to do some cleaning of apps on my phone, but I do feel like for a lot of places that app just makes it so much easier, especially in times of COVID. I've probably downloaded at least 5 to 10 apps that are helping me buy products much more quickly.
Mm-hmm. Same. And I would say that in case anyone's listening from DSW, I flip and love their app. Anytime my kids need shoes or anything, I go in, I search, I can filter exactly to what I need. It's like one click buy. It's the greatest thing in the world.
Absolutely. So here's a question from the group. Do you believe the Gen Z audience consumer will be easier or more difficult to drive brand loyalty versus millennials and older?
I don't think it'll be any more difficult. I think that it's just going to be different how you talk to them, right? And again, it goes back to psychographics, so not all are created equal, right? It goes back to what they decide and deem cool, hip, and trendy, and making sure that your brand fits within their core values as a generational group. And so this conversation is really, that question and this conversation is no different than the same one we had with millennials. Like millennials are going to be so hard to get to. Turns out they're really easy because they all had technology everywhere all the time. And they told us everything about themselves. Gen Z so far has shown us that they're very similar. But the only difference is, which we started this conversation with, is they just want to know what you're doing with everything, right?
Right.
And some of that is just because of the times and that we've trained people. Gen Z is also, I think, the first generation that will have never come out of an analog world. So millennials, we did analog and then learned digital. That's why we're probably the best people in the world. But they've never known, right? Like they're the ones that like, there's a meme going around where they ask kids to like, what does this mean, right? Versus what does this mean? And they said, pretend you're talking on the phone, and they all go like this, like a palm, because they only know a smartphone. And so like to you and I, this means telephone. They were like, I don't know what this means, but this meant telephone to them. And to me, that was the strangest thing. So you start to see those things when someone, because they haven't known anything else.
Yeah, it's interesting. I read something about that before this call, that exactly to your point, that this generation, the technology is there and it's so easy for them to use that they don't understand. Like if they didn't have it, they wouldn't know how to build it or make it, right? Whereas our generations had to figure out how these are going to be incorporated into our lives, where these were thrust upon them. So if you took it all away, they would be lost a bit. But
I just had to explain to my children the other day, because we were watching regular TV and it wasn't recorded, and it went to commercial, and they all were like, Mom, fast forward. And I was like, I can't do it. Like this is a commercial. And they're like, what is happening? Where's our show? And I had to explain to them what commercial breaks were and why they were happening and why I could not do anything about that for them. But yet they know exactly how to stream YouTube onto the TV, no problem. And they don't mind the pre-roll that happens before the YouTube because they know that it's going to happen.
I feel like my girls, I have a 9 and an 11-year-old. I feel like they're at the point now where they enjoy the commercials. Like
really?
And also to I think Robbie's point, who was at HBO earlier, when he said that he was fine to not be judged by watching TV. As much as we also go to Del Taco, we watch TV and we're not ashamed of it. And we actually we like some of the commercials too. So
good.
Well, we have a couple more minutes. What else would you like to share with the group? I'd love to know which QSR brand you'd most like to take down to take a big slice of their business away. I mean, we can easily assume it's probably Taco Bell, but like to me, I see you as more competing with like a Rubio's or a Wahoo's as opposed to a Taco Bell. But
I can see that.
Whose butt do you want to kick?
Del Taco hasn't ever been quiet, right? Like, so if you Google on YouTube, old Del Taco commercials, there's a commercial out there. It's on the internet. Anyone can see it. And I can't remember the character's name, but he was like a Del Taco corporate employee. And that was the commercial bit. And he was standing in front of the Taco Bell headquarters. And he's like, this is what our headquarters is going to look like soon. And then he like holds up a little sign that says Del Taco, and he puts it in front of where the Taco Bell sign is. And he's like, and that's where my office is going to be. And like, it's just funny. And so like Del Taco's never had any problem poking fun, like all in good fun, right? Like it's never like mean or, hey, we're coming at you. It's just in good fun of like, let's have fun. The same way that you see Wendy's talk to Burger King and Wingstop talk to other brands, right? Like it's just in good fun we're sharing the consumer. And we know that fast food or QSR consumers don't always just eat with us. They do go around and eat. The share of stomach goes to different restaurants. So of course, Taco Bell is someone we keep our eye on, but at the end of the day, it's really about the QSR share of stomach. And if we can drive one more trip from them, then we're winning.
Right. I remember those commercials with that guy. The ad agency that I first started at was across the street from the Taco Bell headquarters at the time. And they would do these commercials where he'd be out front just doing ridiculous things in front of their corporate headquarters. I love those.
It cracks me up. And it's the same, like, so Del Taco was featured this January on SNL. And I posted it one day and I was like, hey, do you feel like you made it when you work for the brand that was featured on Saturday Night Live? Like, I feel like I made it, like when that happens, like, and they're just making fun of it, but it's funny.
You're still there.
Yeah.
Great. Well, Erin, thank you so much. It looks like we've got Social D back. So I really enjoyed it. Thank you for letting me be a part of this, and I hope we can do it again sometime.
Likewise. Thank you.
Sure thing.
So thank you both. Both stay on for a moment because I've got a question for each of you. But Brett, I'm gonna give Erin a break for a second and ask you first. And I appreciate you bringing up Social D. You know, as Gen X, we may not have happiness at the center, but we have Mike Ness, so he helps us. Brett, my question for you is, I think we glazed on this topic, but I'd love to get a little bit more insight from you as someone who deals with data and customer data, right? And from the research that I've seen and from the insights that I've been able to glean, and also being a parent of two Gen Zers, it is a generation that is a bit suspicious about their personal data, especially compared to millennials. So what have you seen in that regard? As I think that is obviously, we all know how important that is. So when you have a generation that's coming up that's a little bit more mindful of their digital footprint, what's the takeaway there for marketers?
Yeah, I mean, I think Erin answered it perfectly. So, Gimbal is an identity-driven marketing and ad platform that's powered by physical world data. And we gather that data, and I'm really not trying to pitch here. We gather that data by having our software embedded in thousands of apps, a lot of apps very similar to Del Taco and others. But if you don't have that value trade, I think Gen Z, but even almost everybody at this point, but them more than anybody, saying, what are you bringing to me? So you have to, when you're asking them to either have location services turned on while using the app or always on or not on at all, you need to give them a good reason to share that data, right? And a lot of times it's further incentives, more seamless transition on getting your product from that store or whatever, or just a better user experience in general. You have to have that value exchange. We work with some banks where we help users get into bank locations more quickly without having to get their phone out during cold weather. And that only happens if you're sharing that data and sharing your location.
Yeah.
So I think it all comes down to a value exchange, whether it's location data or others.
So the value exchange becomes even more important, essentially, which means it has to be clear from the beginning. Well, thank you for that. All right, Erin, we were not done with you yet. I mean, beyond ponytails and feathered hair and the numerous 80s band mentions, which I enjoyed all of them. I really enjoyed, especially your descriptor of how COVID is essentially this accelerator. It's something that I talked about. I wrote a Forbes column, exactly that COVID-19 is the great accelerator. So I fully agree with that. You put it so succinctly, and I was wondering if you could dig just a little bit, as much as you feel comfortable, in just highlighting, just from a marketing operations perspective, since digital transformation is being accelerated, just from a marketing operations perspective, what are some of the challenges that you feel like are on the fast track now?
Contactless. So everybody's like, that's the word of the year, I think, is that and unprecedented and all these other words that we say all the time now. But contactless, we need to do contactless. Everything needs to be contactless. How do we not touch you, talk to you? How do we not come in with feet of you? How is everything sanitized, right? Like Walmart's Black Friday deal right now is a phone sanitizer. And you're like, that has never been something I've needed before. And so those things are, I think, constantly a challenge. I'll tell you, in the hospitality space, before I moved over, one of our challenges was just getting the funding to change out all the doors to be able to be a room key, check in, and then be able to use your phone to open your door. And everybody went, oh, yeah, we'll do it eventually. Well, guess what? The pandemic hit, and all of a sudden, everybody can mobily check in and open their door with their phone, right? Because we don't have to exchange keys and no one has to talk to me, and we can lower labor costs. And like I said, it's that great accelerator, and it poses its own challenge, right? I think you will not talk to a marketer or a technology person that, and I'm sure other industries too, that I'm not familiar with, that hasn't just killed themselves for the past year trying to roll out something like this as fast as we have this year with everything accelerating has been intense, right? So we're coming into the holidays and everybody's tired, but we have pushed and we've pushed hard. And so I joke that even in a crisis, there's positive that comes out of it. And when I look back at where we started 2020, we have really accelerated a lot in the MarTech space, which has been really exciting and beneficial for our different industries. However, we're going to end this year exhausted. And so, you know,
Amen.
help us. 2021 is like just a breath of fresh air.
Well, I love your point about contactless and what a challenge that's been. And it makes me also think of something that you wouldn't really naturally think about, which is that old technologies have a place. Look at the QR code, right? I mean, who would have thought
It made
that
a comeback.
Accelerated. I mean,
yeah.
QR codes having their day.
I do not think they're cute things. And I've always joked how much I dislike them. And then right around April, all of a sudden everything was QR codes. And I was like, so the QR code's making a comeback, you guys. Like, okay, I'm going to get on board with this.
Well, took 100 years and a pandemic, but here we are. Well, thank you both. I mean, really great